Hey everyone, Matthew and Amy here, CanadianRenegade.com. We've been living in the tiny house for about a year now, and today we're going to go over some of the things that went well and some of the things that didn't.
Yeah, so we've been in the tiny house for all 4 seasons now, so we've experienced it from plus 30 weather to minus 30 weather, and that gave us a pretty good idea of what was working well and what wasn't.
Yeah, we just wanted to bring some reality to the subject of tiny house living. We've noticed that there's a lot of videos out there that show all these amazing tiny houses and their awesome layouts, and you rarely get to see how it turned out a year or two later after someone had lived in those houses for a while. So we just wanted to do that and bring a little bit of perspective to the matter. Okay, so I think we'll start off by talking about some of the challenges we faced over the past year. And a lot of these challenges were either directly related or aggravated by the cold weather that we have. So the first thing is condensation. We started noticing as it got colder that we were getting some condensation on the windows, and we even noticed it in a couple corners of the house as well. And this condensation it's mainly caused by all of the humidity sources in the house, the washing, hanging clothes, taking showers, cooking, even just breathing. All these things produce moisture, and in a larger house it's spread out a lot more, and so in a smaller space it becomes a bit more of a problem.
Yeah, there was even a few times where I'd want to open a window to let some of the condensation out while I was cooking, but it had built up so much that our windows actually froze shut, and that was a pretty big issue.
Condensation issues, they're not just regulated to tiny homes. I'm a roofing repair guy, and I do a lot of calls where I assess attics during the winter for leaks, and most of the time they actually end up being condensation issues in the attic. So when it's minus 20 or minus 30 for weeks at a time, I'd say probably a third of the houses have condensation issues.
Yeah, we've even learned about an air exchanger that you can put into a house to alleviate some of the condensation. We kind of learned about that after our build, but it's definitely something that we would look into for the future.
Yeah, we're gonna look into it. I saw both some positive and negative reviews. It's basically like a smaller version of an air exchanger, and so yeah, we'll look into it some more, and we'll see if we put it in before winter. Another one of the disappointments we had was that our furnace, we have an RV furnace, and I wanted to have redundancies for heating the house just in case something went wrong. We have both wood burning hobbit stove and the RV furnace, and I think after I'd say about 4 months of use, the RV furnace kind of crapped out on us, and we're not sure exactly what's wrong with it. It won't light. It's not the igniter. I think it's the board. But I've attempted to fix it. I'm still in the process of fixing it. It is warming up, so it's not an emergency anymore. But I would say for the furnace manufacturer, like if you're gonna make a product it was an $800 product. If you're gonna make a product that craps out that quickly, then you should at least make it easy to fix, because it was like to just access the components that need to be changed is just a major headache.
So another issue that we ran into was with our bathroom sink. At one point in time, I noticed that it just wasn't draining anymore, and we suspected some sort of clog, and upon further investigation, it turned out that one of the pipes had frozen, and that was the only pipe that we had issues with, and I think it's because we are really conservative with our water use in the bathroom, and we don't really let it run for a really long period of time for it to heat up.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of several different factors. That was the only drain that we had an issue with. I think part of it was the slope of the drain pipe, and then the small quantity of water. It just never really had a chance to melt the ice that was building up in there. And we did have an exceptionally amount of cold weather this year, so I think it's going to come down again to better insulation under the trailer, and I'm probably going to wrap some heat tape on that individual pipe just because it's a problem area. But other than that, our drains seem to work pretty good, so I think we did okay. We didn't have any issues with any internal pipes freezing, and that was one of our concerns, so at least we were good there. We also had an issue with our washer dryer. Now, we do have a full review on that washer dryer, so if you want to check that out, that would be great. And we also have a video on fixing the washer dryer. And the problem related to some lint buildup at the back of the machine, and the dryer just didn't want to work anymore. And we think that part of the problem was that the outer vent flap on the outside of the house was freezing shut in the cold weather, and then the lint was just building up inside the machine. So we may try to change to a different type of vent flap, and hopefully that'll solve the problem.
It was a pretty easy fix, though.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
So next on our list is the Hobbit stove, which is our little wood-burning stove. It probably worked a little too well, which is why you'll probably also see it on our pros list. I think the only downside was that the heat was so concentrated and so intense in certain areas of the house, like our office living area and the lofts, but it didn't really travel to the far ends of the house, so there were still a few cold pockets. So
I've seen those fans that they basically run off of the heat of the stove, so we may try putting one of those on there to spread the heat out a little bit. And I do have a few other ideas. But yeah, like basically we couldn't run the Hobbit stove until it was probably down to about -15. Otherwise we'd overheat the house and have to open a bunch of windows. So you can look at that as like a pro or a con, and I think we'll kind of talk about that more when we get to the pros. Another thing that we were a little bit disappointed with was the amount of water storage that we have. We have a 150-gallon water bladder in the floor. You might want to check out some previous videos to see what that looks like. And I'd say like mainly the water usage is coming mostly from the washer dryer, but that is a nice convenience to have. But we are going to be looking into expanding that. There's probably room to get a custom bladder that would probably have 50 to 60 more gallons of storage. The good thing with our raised floor design was that none of the water bladder or water pipes froze under there, so the floor is functioning the way it's supposed to.
So now we're on to the pros. I would say I'm really happy that we decided to go with a full-size kitchen. We essentially measured the kitchen in the rental that we were living in prior to the tiny house and built our kitchen to be about the same size. I gotta say I love having a large fridge and a full stove and counter space to do all of my cooking, because I do a lot of cooking from scratch, so that really made a difference for our lifestyle.
Before building the tiny house, we had looked at some RVs, and a lot of them came with they just kind of had a clumsy kitchen, I would call it, or like an awkward kitchen. They didn't have a lot of counter space.
Mm-mm.
The sinks weren't full size, and a lot of times the stoves they had very small ovens, and oftentimes 3 burners kind of pushed close together, and they just didn't seem functional. So that was really something that we wanted to focus on, was to come up with a kitchen design that would be easy to work with and not be a hassle.
Yeah, I know there are some tiny houses that use the apartment size fridges, and that might work if you're living in the city and have access to a grocery store day to day, but with us being out in the country, having a larger fridge really made a world of difference. And one of the ways that we optimized the space in the kitchen too was to put the dish drying racks above the sink, and they just kind of just drain into the sink. It's really functional, and I'm glad we made the choices we did there.
Yeah, me too.
Bye. So next on the pros list would be the size of our bathroom. We noticed a lot of the designs that were out there had pretty small bathrooms where sometimes the showers were even over the toilets, and that didn't really appeal to me. So it was important to have some space in the bathroom and an adequate shower. And I'd say, considering we have our washer dryer machine in the bathroom as well, we did pretty good on maximizing that space.
Start talking about the bathroom, I just thought I'd mention the washer dryer again. It was on the challenges list, but it was a fairly easy problem to fix, and overall we're very happy with the machine. So another thing we were pretty happy with overall was the Hobbit stove. Although we did have some issues with it being too hot when the temperatures weren't that low, when it was really cold, like -20 or -30, it was really nice to have. we could stoke it up before bed, and a lot of times the furnace wouldn't kick on until later in the morning, near about the time we would get up.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of nice, and it did save having to use a fair bit of propane with the furnace.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess with the way that furnace crapped out, it may have done it a lot sooner if we hadn't been running the wood stove on a regular basis. So I'm pretty happy with it. It lights easy, and has really good draft up the flue and everything. So overall, it's performed quite well.
So I think one of the biggest concerns about building a tiny house when you're living in a cold climate is your water storage. When you're not hooked up to a grid, how do you store your water and keep it from freezing? And we came up with the idea of raising the floor on the main level. Since you have so much headroom, it's really unused space. So we tucked our water into the floor, and we're happy to report that the insulation under the trailer worked really well. We had no issues with the water bladder freezing. We had no issues with any of the lines freezing. It was great. Worked really well overall.
Yeah, and that was with several weeks of like -30 overnight weather. I think the coldest we had was about -40 if you included the wind chill. So it was actually one of the coldest winters in probably the last 4 or 5. So I think we did pretty good that way, and that was one of the features that worked really well. We also are pretty happy with the hot water tank, and it is a 10-gallon RV hot water tank. So opposed to the RV furnace, which we're not happy with at all, the tank has been really good. We've had plenty of hot water, and it uses very little propane, a lot less than you'd think. I haven't really had to do any maintenance, so far, after a whole year of use, I'm pretty satisfied with it.
Yeah, we generally conserve water and take shorter showers, but the few times that we've left the water running throughout the entire shower and kind of treated ourselves, we never had any issues with running out of hot water before we were done.
Yeah, and a lot of times someone might be doing dishes and using hot water in the kitchen while someone's showering, and we never really have a cold water issue, so it seems to be working pretty good.
I'd say the lighting that we chose for the house, well, that you chose for the house, was a really good decision. We haven't had any issues with it. One of the things that we talked about, again, comparing one of our older living situations, was having a bulb in the middle of the kitchen, and then trying to prepare a meal was really difficult because you were always casting a shadow across the counter. We ran our lights under our shelving to illuminate the counter space, and I think that was a really good choice. I really like that. And we have a dimming light in the bedroom, which is also really awesome. So when we're winding down and getting ready to go to sleep and maybe reading, we can just kind of turn the light down a little bit and let ourselves sink into sleep mode.
Yeah, I had to come up with a fair number of innovative solutions for our lighting. The kitchen has a fairly low ceiling, so putting a light in the center of it would have cast a lot of shadows. Your body would block the light. But all of our lighting is 12-volt DC lighting, and we have a little battery bank. Right now there's just one battery, but we have basically all LED lighting, and it's worked very well, and it doesn't use a lot of power. Basically, even if we turn the charger off, we can run the whole house for over a day, and the battery isn't anywhere near being empty. So when we do finally go fully off grid and we upgrade the battery bank to 3 or 4 batteries, I think it'll be completely fine. Another design feature that we're pretty happy with is that we chose to run as many appliances as possible on propane. We have a propane hot water tank, furnace, kitchen stove, and refrigerator. The refrigerator we've been running mostly on electricity, but we have tested it out, and it does run pretty well on propane as well. And I've been very happy with the amount of propane usage. We get about 2.5 to 4 months, depending on the weather and how much heat we need, per 100-pound propane tank.
I really enjoy cooking on a propane stove. I wasn't sure how that was going to go because I've only ever cooked with an electric stove. But it's really nice because the heat is there right when you want it to be, and it was a bit of an adjustment, but didn't take much to get used to it. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching.
Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. We have a lot more really interesting videos coming up, so make sure to stay tuned, and until next time, take care.